This will not end just with firings. I believe there are people who will go to jail. I was very persuaded by the evidence, and it also became clear to me why Chuck Grassley and Lindsey Graham felt it so important to refer this matter for criminal prosecution. You don't get to try to undermine our country, undermine our elections, and then simply get fired. So I think there will be criminal implications here, and we have to underscore the point that you and Jim Jordan just made. Every single Democrat on the Intelligence Committee voted against even allowing other members of Congress to see this information. So you know they're going to fight against release to the American people. What are the Democrats so afraid of? Why don't they want the American people to know the truth about what was going on with the government, how that impacted the president, his transition, his campaign? And it just seems interesting to me that Democrats don't want us to know what the entire basis was in the first place for the Mueller probe. They want to drag this out through the midterm elections to try to embarrass this president and distract this Congress from the critical work we've got to do to save this great country.
I'm reading it, and it's a very succinct, straightforward message.
This will not end just with firings. I believe there are people who will go to jail. I was very persuaded by the evidence, and it also became clear to me why Chuck Grassley and Lindsey Graham felt it so important to refer this matter for criminal prosecution. You don't get to try to undermine our country, undermine our elections, and then simply get fired. So I think there will be criminal implications here, and we have to underscore the point that you and Jim Jordan just made. Every single Democrat on the Intelligence Committee voted against even allowing other members of Congress to see this information. So you know they're going to fight against release to the American people. What are the Democrats so afraid of? Why don't they want the American people to know the truth about what was going on with the government, how that impacted the president, his transition, his campaign? And it just seems interesting to me that Democrats don't want us to know what the entire basis was in the first place for the Mueller probe. They want to drag this out through the midterm elections to try to embarrass this president and distract this Congress from the critical work we've got to do to save this great country.
I'm reading it, and it's a very succinct, straightforward memo. And there were a couple times as I'm reading this thing where I'm just like shaking my head. You've got to be kidding me. I can't believe they did that. So I think it's something that is really significant. I think that the American people need to see it. There's growing support in the House to make this public so that the American people can see. And here's the thing. The memo's done in such a way where you can easily make it public. There aren't, it's classified top secret, but there aren't sources and methods here.
The American people need to see this. We want the journalists in this great country to see this, but mostly we want the American people to understand what the FBI did, how wrong it was. And again, we're not allowed to talk about it, but the last point Ed made is right on target. The committee can meet today, can meet tomorrow. If a majority of the committee votes to release this, it goes to the White House. The White House can say thumbs up or thumbs down. My guess is they're going to say thumbs up. And then it's out there, and the American people can see what took place at the highest levels of our FBI, at the highest levels of the Justice Department. That should not happen.
I am as certain as ever that the claims we have been making are accurate claims, that there is intelligence information that backs it up, and that there has been a real attempt to undermine this president, and it has come from the scariest of places. Some of the very people we've been talking about will be exposed, and the key reason that all Americans need to see this memo is that it names names. It says who was involved with who, how different actors and characters we've heard about interacted with one another, and that is the type of information that we need all Americans to see immediately.
Today, I had the opportunity to go into a confidential setting to make sure that what we can do is understand better what actually took place. And I'm here to tell all of America tonight that I am shocked to read exactly what has taken place. I would think that it would never happen in a country that loves freedom and democracy like this country. It is time that we become transparent in all of this, and I am calling on our leadership to make this available so that all Americans can judge for themselves.
Top officials should be impeached, which means they can't hold another government position, but I suspect this intel document is going to reveal multiple felonies by high-ranking officials at the FBI and the Department of Justice. There's a federal felony statute. It's called deprivation of rights under color of law. And it says that a government official cannot use their position of power to deprive somebody of their constitutional rights. Here, it's the constitutional right to privacy as upheld by the Supreme Court. So if the FBI and the DOJ goes into a federal judge using a fake false document to obtain a warrant to spy, that's a violation. It's a felony. It's 10 years behind bars. People ought to be prosecuted for that.
Hello, viewers on YouTube. How you doing? What show are we on?
The Truth is Viral.
The Truth is Viral, people. So take 2 penicillins and call me in the morning.
Places you don't talk about at parties. You want me on that wall. You need me on that wall.
Keep this frequency clear.
And now it's conspiracy. See, they've made that something that should not be even entertained for a minute. That powerful people might get together and have a plan. Doesn't happen. You're a kook. You're a conspiracy buff.
You're watching The Truth is Viral, the only news program on the internet trusted to deliver the truth since 2008. And now, here's your host, Mr. Bobby Powell.
Well, welcome back to The Truth is Viral, folks. The FISA memo has been released, and we're going to talk about it today. I'm going to read it to you live right here on The Truth is Viral, and then you're going to get to call in at 218-548-7742, code 2018, and you're going to be able to chime in as well. Oh, yeah, we've been waiting for a long time for this memo to come out because it's going to show, without a doubt, the criminality of the FBI and the Department of Justice and the the Obama administration and the Clinton Foundation, and oh my gosh, it's just fun stuff. Are you ready to read this memo with me? Huh? Are you ready? Let's go take a look at this. We'll just get right into it. Just got to put it up here. All right, here we go. To the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, majority members from the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, majority staff, subject Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act abuses at the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Purpose: this memorandum provides members an update on significant facts relating to the committee's ongoing investigation into the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation and their use of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA, during the 2016 presidential election cycle. Our findings, which are detailed below, raise concerns with the legitimacy and legality of certain DOJ and FBI interactions with the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court and represent a troubling breakdown of legal processes established to protect the American people from abuses related to the FISA process. Investigation update. On October 21st, 2016, DOJ and FBI sought and received a FISA probable cause order, not under Title VII, authorizing electronic surveillance on Carter Page from the Federal Intelligence Surveillance Court. Page is a U.S. citizen who served as a volunteer advisor to the Trump presidential campaign. Consistent with requirements under FISA, the application had to be first certified by the director or deputy director of the FBI. If it then required the approval of the Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General, or the Senate-confirmed Assistant Attorney General for the National Security Division. The FBI and DOJ obtained one initial FISA warrant targeting Carter Page and 3 FISA renewals from the FISC. As required by statute, a FISA order on an American citizen must be renewed by the surveillance court every 90 days, and each renewal requires a separate finding of probable cause. Then, Director James Comey signed 3 FISA applications in question on behalf of the FBI, and Deputy Director Andrew McCabe signed 1. Then DAG Sally Yates, then acting DAG Dana Muente, and DAG Rod Rosenstein each signed one or more FISA applications on behalf of the DOJ. Due to the sensitive nature of FISA intelligence activities, FISA submissions, including renewals before the court, are classified. As such, the public's confidence in the integrity of the FISA process depends on the court's ability to hold the government to the highest standard, particularly as it relates to the surveillance of American citizens. However, the court's rigor in protecting the rights of Americans, which is reinforced by 90-day renewals of surveillance orders, is necessarily dependent on the government's production to the court of all material and relevant facts. This should include information potentially favorable to the target of the FISA application that is known by the government. In the case of Carter Page, the government had at least 4 independent opportunities before the court to accurately provide an accounting of the relevant facts. However, our findings indicate that, as described below, material and relevant information was omitted. Number 1. The dossier compiled by Christopher Steele on behalf of the Democratic National Committee and the Hillary Clinton campaign formed an essential part of the Carter Page FISA application. Steele was a longtime FBI source who was paid over $160,000 by the Democratic National Committee and the Clinton campaign via the law firm Perkins Coie and research firm Fusion GPS in order to obtain derogatory information on Donald Trump's ties to Russia. Subsection A. Neither the initial application in October 2016 nor any of the renewals, disclosure, or reference the role of the DNC, the Clinton campaign, or any party campaign in funding of Steele's efforts, even though the political origins of the Steele dossier were then known to senior DOJ and FBI officials. The initial FISA application notes that Steele was working for a named U.S. person, but does not name Fusion GPS and Principal Glenn Simpson, who was paid by a U.S. law firm, Perkins Coie, representing the DNC, even though it was known by the DOJ at the time that political actors were involved with the Steele dossier. The application does not mention Steele, who was ultimately working on behalf and was paid by the DNC and Clinton campaign, or that the FBI had separately authorized payments to Steele for the same information. Subsection 2, or point 2. The Carter Page FISA application also cited extensively a September 23, 2016 Yahoo News article by Michael Isikoff, which focuses on Page's July 2016 trip to Moscow. The article does not corroborate the Steele dossier because it is derived from information leaked by Steele himself to Yahoo News. The Page FISA application incorrectly assesses that Steele did not directly provide information to Yahoo News. Steele has admitted in British court filings that he met with Yahoo News and several other outlets in September 2016 at the direction of Fusion GPS. Perkins Coie was also aware of Steele's initial media contacts because they hosted at least one meeting in Washington, D.C. in 2016 with Steele and Fusion GPS where this matter was discussed. Subsection A. Steele was suspended and then terminated as an FBI source for what the FBI defines as the most serious of violations, an unauthorized disclosure to the media of his relationship with the FBI in an October 30th, 2016 Mother Jones article by David Korn. Steele should have been terminated for his previously undisclosed contacts with Yahoo and other outlets in September, before the Page application was submitted to the FISA court in October. But Steele improperly concealed from and lied to the FBI about those contacts. Steele's numerous encounters with the media violated the cardinal rule of source handling, maintaining confidentiality, and demonstrated that Steele had become a less than reliable source for the FBI. Before and after Steele was terminated as a source, he maintained contact with DOJ via then Associate Deputy Attorney General Bruce Orr, a senior DOJ official who worked closely with Deputy Generals Yates and later Rosenstein. Shortly after the election, the FBI began interviewing Orr, documenting his communications with Steele. For example, in 2016 September, Steele admitted to Orr his feelings against then-candidate Trump when Steele said he was desperate Quoting again, he was desperate that Donald Trump not get elected and was passionate about him not being president. This clear evidence of Steele's bias was recorded by Orr at the time and subsequently in official FBI files, but not reflected in any of the Page FISA applications. Subsection A, during this same time period, Orr's wife was employed by Fusion GPS to assist in the cultivation of opposition research on Trump. Orr later provided the FBI with all of his wife's opposition research, paid for by the Democratic National Committee and Clinton campaign via Fusion GPS. The Orr's relationship with Steele and Fusion GPS was inexplicably concealed from the FISA court. 4. According to the head of the FBI's Counterintelligence Division, Assistant Director Bill Priestap, corroboration of the Steele dossier was in its infancy at the time of the initial Page FISA application. After Steele was terminated, a source validation report conducted by an independent unit within the FBI assessed Steele's reporting as only minimally corroborated. Yet in early January 2017, Director Comey briefed President-elect Trump on a summary of the Steele dossier, even though it was, according to his June 2017 testimony, salacious and unverified. While the FISA application relied on Steele's past record of credible reporting and on unrelated matters, it ignored or concealed his anti-Trump financial and ideological motivations. Furthermore, Deputy Director McCabe testified before the committee in December 2017 that no surveillance warrant should have been sought from the FISA court without the Steele dossier information. The Page FISA application also mentions information regarding fellow Trump campaign advisor George Papadopoulos, but there is no evidence of any cooperation or conspiracy between Page and Papadopoulos. The Papadopoulos information triggered the opening of an FBI counterintelligence investigation in late July 2016 by FBI agent Peter Strzok. Strzok was reassigned by the special counsel's office to FBI Human Resources for improper text messages with his mistress, FBI attorney Lisa Page, who has no known relationship to Carter Page, where they both demonstrated a clear bias against Trump and in favor of Clinton, whom Strzok had also investigated. The Strzok-Lisa Page texts also reflect extensive discussions about the investigation, orchestrating links to the media, and including the meeting with Deputy Director Andrew McCabe to discuss an insurance policy against Trump's election. We'll scroll down a little bit further here. Oh, that's it. Went through all 4 pages. Okay. Well then. What do we think about that, folks? They're telling us that this FISA memo is going to derail the Mueller investigation, and I'll tell you why. I've made a couple of notes on this. Okay. All these warrants, beginning with the warrant on Carter Page, were based on this fake dossier, the one that was created by the Democratic National Committee and or paid for by the Democratic National Committee and the Clinton campaign. And it's based on this fake dossier. And there's a legal term. It's called the fruit of the poisonous tree. Okay, when you start a case that's based on false information, then anything that results from that is tainted. Okay, so there never should have been a Mueller investigation in the first place. Okay, here's where it gets sticky. Bruce Orr, who was a senior member of the Department of Justice, and his wife, Nellie Orr, who worked for Fusion GPS, were collaborating back and forth. She was collecting campaign research on Donald Trump and feeding it to Bruce Orr, and he was feeding it back to the FBI to say, well, look at what Donald Trump has done. Okay, none of the 4 FISA applications on Carter Page, which went back to 2013, says anything about Clinton or the DNC funding. Now, McCabe admitted under oath that without the dossier, there would have been no FISA warrant issued. Now, without the FISA warrant being issued, there would have been no Mueller investigation into Donald Trump or Russia. So, that's that. almost anticlimactic. It was very dry reading, but lawyers are going to be having a field day with this. We're going to be having a lot of fun in the near future. Okay, I'm looking at the chats here. But you should see the trolls in the other chats. Wow, that comes from My Kid's Future. It's like all of CNN is on YouTube right now chatting. Oh yeah, there's going to be some major pushback on this, major pushback, because they just did not want this out. And I can understand why, because it's absolutely all fake news. All of it, every little bit of it. While I set up the next little portion, why don't we see what Fox News has to say about this stuff right about now. Yeah, here we go. There we go. I'm pulling them up. I'm starting to get used to this software. It's pretty easy.
Disgrace. The memo was sent to Congress. It was declassified. Congress will do whatever they're going to do. But I think it's a disgrace what's happening in our country. And when you look at that and you see that and so many other things, what's going on, a lot of people should be ashamed of themselves, and much worse than that.
So the president thinks it's a disgrace. Meanwhile, the former FBI director James Comey thinks it's a big nothing burger, tweeting, quote, "That's it? Dishonest and misleading memo wrecked the House Intel Committee, destroyed trust with intelligence community, damaged relationship with FISA court, and inexcusably exposed classified investigation of an American citizen. For what? DOJ and FBI must keep doing their jobs." That's just the tip of the iceberg of what we're hearing this afternoon, Dana.
It is. Well, TGIF, John. TGIF.
Yeah, FISA Friday now.
Indeed.
We've got Firing Friday, Felony Friday, now FISA Friday.
Appreciate it. Thank you. President Trump was also asked about his deputy attorney general earlier after the memo was released.
Do you think he's more likely to fire Rosenstein? Do you still have confidence in him after reading the memo?
You figure that one out.
James Trusty is a former Department of Justice prosecutor, and there's a lot to get to here. Let me start at the top, and I do want to finish with Rosenstein. What questions do you have that remain, or that you caught your eye when you read this? Because I'm wondering, how far up the food chain it went, knowingly concealing something from the court. That seems highly unusual for an FBI operation. Is that right?
Yeah, it is highly unusual, and that is the big question. I think that it's a memo, it's a summary memo, and so it's not going to give you all of the factual particulars that you want to be able to answer that question. But ultimately, there's at least a conclusion that a number of officials signed off on what turned out to be a false affidavit. That obviously has political consequences no matter what. But on the legal front, if you're representing somebody that was affected by these wiretaps, you're going to want to push very hard to figure out just how much bad faith was evident in this situation. It's the way you're going to challenge the admissibility of perhaps very important evidence is to establish the material omission by the agent who did the affidavit, and then figuring out just how much complicity there was above that agent.
In fact, Carter Page has already said he looks forward to working with his lawyers on reevaluating, and I believe that you think that Paul Manafort might also have that opportunity.
Well, it all depends on who's affected by the actual wiretaps, and I'm not privy to that, and I'm not sure anybody else is. So we're still left with a lot of speculation. But if there are intercepts over the course of those many months that are going to be used in court by a prosecution, then this motion almost writes itself for the defense to challenge it. Because the one way they ever get in trouble is either by lying or making a material misrepresentation. And I know a lot of FBI agents, I'm good friends with a lot of them, who would never do something like this, and that's what makes this all the more striking.
And in fact, that's one of the reasons that Speaker Paul Ryan was trying to very hard to say there's the rank and file is fine, they're good, they're solid, and President Trump said that today as well. But there is this question, and this memo is being seen as a bombshell by some. But you saw James Comey, the former Attorney General, FBI Director, just tweeting that it's really probably not that big a deal. But I want to ask you about something else, which is this question that John Roberts brought up about the corroboration of using the media to corroborate something to then present to the court. What do you think of that?
Right. That's really kind of a shocking thing. I was a prosecutor for 27 years. I looked at numerous affidavits, reviewed them all the time. I can't remember one that relied on media reporting for any aspect of this. And frankly, with the leaks that Comey made to the media, he's kind of the wrong person to scream about that. But again, relying on media seems crazy. The FBI has a lot of resources. They don't need to just read a newspaper and try to include that as a basis for probable cause. They can go out and investigate and interview the people themselves and have much more reliable information. I mean, not to suggest media ever gets anything wrong, but that reliance was very unusual.
Is it true that, that when you go to the FISA judge that perhaps what you're presenting in this dossier might just be a small portion of the overall application, or and from this memo, do you think that they were mostly relying on the dossier?
Well, that's why I want to see the affidavits. I mean, again, they may not see daylight, but the real question there is how dependent were these affidavits on the dossier? If they're wholly or nearly wholly dependent on them, it's a real problem for the prosecution. But one thing related to that, Dana, just to keep in mind, the first version of the affidavit, the application package, is going to be very different than perhaps the third or fourth or fifth. What agents from the first instance presented to either Sally Yates or Rod Rosenstein, as well as the FBI counterparts, is going to look a lot different than the end because the case evolves. They might have more information from the wiretaps or more corroboration. So by the time Rod Rosenstein's signing off on something, it could look very different than that initial application, which again looks like willfully withheld very important information.
And perhaps that's what the Democrats are saying about when they were saying that it's incomplete. Take a listen to this. You mentioned Rod Rosenstein. He's the Deputy Attorney General. The New York Times writes this, that another option that Mr. Trump considered in discussions with his advisors was dismissing the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, and elevating the department's number 3 official, Rachel Brand, to oversee Mr. Mueller. Mr. Rosenstein has overseen the investigation since March, when Attorney General Jeff Sessions recused himself. Yesterday, Speaker Paul Ryan said he had confidence in Rod Rosenstein. Today, the president said, "I'll let you figure that out." What do you think this means for Rod Rosenstein?
Right. Well, I'm not the one to divine the comments of the president, because it could change 6 more times by the time we get off the air. But look, it's not a shock to think that Rod is drawing fire from both the left and right. I know the guy pretty well, and I know he's a very professional, objective person, and I suspect there are still fair questions to ask, but I think I know the answers when it comes to Rod's motivation and Rod's competence. But he can be the most competent, squeaky clean guy to ever set foot in Washington. That doesn't mean he gets to hold on to his job. So, yeah. When they selected Mueller, well, you know, he first said, when this first all started out, that Mueller was a great guy. He could be trusted. He has a sterling reputation in the FBI as being fair and being non-political. Well, yeah, that didn't work out too well, did it? Yeah. And now Rosenstein, well, he's got a reputation for being a straight shooter and all that stuff. Well, garbage. It looks to me like the entire upper echelons of the FBI is complicit in this garbage, and I think they all need to go. Even Christopher Wray, okay? He opposed the release of this memo. He's a director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. He works for President Trump, and he serves at the president's pleasure. He needs to be fired. Rosenstein needs to be fired. Priestap needs to be fired. Matter of fact, they don't need to be just fired. They need to be perp-walked. You know, folks, we've got a system of government that came out of, it was based on Greek democracy and in the 17th century Enlightenment thought, okay? And out of the 17th century, what came about was a concept known as a social contract, okay, when it comes to government. That means when we, the people, elect our representatives to go to Congress, we expect them to behave honorably, with integrity, and honestly, okay? And then when you've got appointed people like the director of the FBI or director of the Bureau of Land Management, for example, they also have a special duty to the American people, especially those in law enforcement. The FBI's motto, you know, based on its initials, fidelity, bravery, and integrity. I don't see it.
I see no integrity coming out of the upper echelons of the FBI. Now, remember, though, I've always said that a vast majority of federal law enforcement officers, even state and local law enforcement officers, a vast majority do their jobs right. They do what they're supposed to be doing, and they acquit themselves with honor. But I'm convinced now that once you get to a certain level in federal government, you're going to be corrupted. Because, you know the old saying, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And I don't think that we can trust individuals with this power anymore. There needs to be oversight, and I mean real oversight. The FBI has been stalling giving Congress documents for a year over this, and in other cases too, when Attorney General Eric Holder was found in contempt of Congress. By the way, he's still in contempt of Congress. You know, they used to throw you under the jail when you were in contempt of Congress until you told them what they wanted to know. But that doesn't happen anymore. There's no punishment for acting like a tyrant. You know, writing as Publius, James Madison said that when the powers of are coordinated into one hand, legislative, executive, and judicial are all in one hand, that's the very definition of tyranny. We can't let these people get away with this, folks. There needs to be real oversight. The FBI must be required to send documents to Congress when they're demanded. The Congress shouldn't have to subpoena the FBI or find Christopher Wray in contempt of Congress. I mean, congressmen have security clearances. They're allowed to see what the documents the FBI has, but the FBI wasn't giving it to them. They were hiding texts from Hillary Clinton and most recently from Strzok and Page. Oh yeah, well we've lost five months of text messages between bull, because you know less than 24 hours later, the Inspector General the Inspector General of the FBI decided, well, hey, let's go look for him, and he found him right away. And so the FBI lied to Congress, said we lost him. The Inspector General goes back the next day. No, you didn't. Here they are. That's why I know that Hillary Clinton's 33,000 deleted emails are on a server somewhere or on a thumb drive. You know, the NSA, the National Security Agency, sucks up every byte of data that goes through our computers, goes through our telephones, everything. And they store it in these vast data warehouses. They've got so much storage space that it's insane. But every piece of data is stored on those NSA servers, and Trump is also commander over the National Security Agency. He can get those 33,000 emails if he wants to. But you know, I think that the thing with Trump and the Q thing, I think they're trying to red pill everybody just a little bit at a time. If Trump were to exercise his powers to open up everything all at once, I think half the country's heads would explode. I really do. It's so funny, and in the same breath, it's tragic, because we shouldn't have to be in this position. We should have law enforcement officers and congressmen that are above reproach, and we don't have that. But in our system of government, we require it. And John Adams says that our government was intended to be run by religious and moral men, and that it was wholly unsuited to the government of any other. And we don't have that kind of government. You know, since Madalyn Murray O'Hair in the 60s, they've thrown religion out of the schools. I don't even know if they pledge allegiance to the flags in the schools anymore. And that's sad. That's the way I was raised. I was raised to respect our flag. You know, respect police officers. Police officers, when I grew up, were the good guys. I mean, we're talking like Sheriff Andy Taylor and and from Mayberry. You know, that's the kind of cops that we need. But now we've got these militarized police forces, and they're filled with alpha males that aren't seeking justice. They're just going out there to see how many heads they can bust. And again, I'm not talking about all of them, but I'm talking about a good portion of them, enough that there's a problem. And the good FBI agents and the good law enforcement officers aren't doing anything about it. So that kind of makes them complicit, doesn't it? You know, after everything that I've seen, I've seen evidence of clear felonies through all this. I want to know why an FBI agent somewhere in the mid level ranks isn't arresting these people. Why aren't they being arrested? Hillary Clinton committed a felony. She violated the National Espionage Act when she used an unsecured server, and there was nothing done. I mean, this is not new to you guys. Peter Strzok changed the language in the Comey memo that was exonerating Clinton to, make it non-prosecutable, but that's semantics. The National Espionage Act does not have intent as a requirement, although Hillary Clinton clearly intended to hide her emails. It's not a requirement. She should have been arrested and perp-walked and put in jail a long time ago. But people are scared. Like those text messages between Strzok and Page. Well, we don't want to go full on Hillary Clinton because she might not like us anymore. These people don't have any clue about the concept of duty or honor, responsibility. That's why I thank God for President Trump, because it's gonna take a while. Okay, this Mueller investigation has been going on for over a year, and now it's finally coming to an end, and it's going to come to an ignominious end. And it's going to anger about half the country because they couldn't prove any Trump-Russia collusion. Well, it's impossible to prove something that didn't happen. But in the same note, it's going to take a while for all of this truth to leak out too, because like I said a minute ago, you let out everything all at once, everybody's head's going to explode. So let's look at the comments on YouTube. Don't forget, folks, I would like for you to join the conversation. All you need to do is call 218-548-7742 and enter the code 2018, and you can chime in as well. So come on and let me know what you got. Okay, there's an interesting comment by 777 Wake Up Call. He says, interesting that you use the word garbage with the recent garbage truck accident. God takes out our filthy trash and cleanses the land. Trash apocalypse now. Only, I don't think that all the members of Congress are garbage, but a good significant portion of them are. I mean, look at Maxine Waters or Nancy Pelosi. How can you serve this country on a $175,000 yearly salary and become worth $100 million? That's Nancy Pelosi's net worth. How does that happen? Because she's corrupt. She gets paid off. Maxine Waters lives in a $4 million mansion that isn't even inside her own district. That should be a requirement that you live in the district of the people that you're representing. Of course, I don't think they would like a $4 million mansion in the middle of Watts. That might actually, I think they should put it there. I think they should put a $4 million mansion in the middle of Watts so that all these folks can see how the people that they vote for live. I mean, they're totally disconnected. I mean, any person that has a brain can see how congressmen and senators are using their position and power to collect wealth, to become wealthy for themselves. You know, Hillary Clinton's foundation isn't the only one. John McStain also has a foundation. He takes money from Saudi Arabia and all these other guys. He needs to go down. He's a traitor, always has been. From the moment he dropped his bomb on the USS Forrestal, almost sinking that aircraft carrier. To the moment that he was captured by the North Vietnamese, he's been a traitor. I'm not going to play it now, but John McCain has, there have been recordings released where he says how good the people of North Vietnam had treated him and how it was a war crime for him to bomb innocent, peaceful people of North Vietnam. Well, you know, folks, that is a violation of Article 5 of the Code of Conduct. So, but he comes home, and because his daddy and his grandfather were admirals in the U.S. Navy, John McCain comes home to a hero's welcome, even though he was giving aid and comfort to our enemies in a time of war. That's called treason. So John McCain needs to go, along with all the rest of them. Let's look at some more of these. Google Big Bird Pizza Party. I'm not. That's for another show. Let's see. Xenopec, never heard of him. Trumpty Dumpty stood on the wall. He may very well be standing on the wall before this whole deal is over with. I certainly hope so. I'd donate $10 to that cause. You know, the walls only cost, well, the projection costs would only be $10 billion. Well, we spend almost $100 billion every year on feeding and educating and taking care of health care for illegal aliens. So, yeah, build the wall. It'll be a net savings of $80 billion a year. I think I like that. And you know what? It would create a lot of jobs, a lot of construction jobs for a long time. And then after the wall's built, well, hey, you got to have people to patrol it, right? More jobs created. So I like Donald Trump's idea of a wall. I think it's a really good idea. And Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General of the United States, he needs to get on this. And you know, Q says that he's busy behind the scenes doing stuff. Well, maybe he is, maybe he isn't. I'm not. How do I want to say it? I'm pretty sure that Q is the real deal, because when Donald Trump uploaded a photograph of him and his inner circle from Air Force One, the file name was Do It Q, followed by a bunch of numbers. So, and that appeared on Donald Trump's official Twitter account. So, you know, I'm pretty sure that Q is real and that he exists, or they. Some people think that Q is a they, and that's very possible too. But Q admitted that sometimes this information would be leaked as fact. So, you know, you can't even trust 100% of what Q says, because he said right off the bat that it's going to be disinformation. So, you know what I wish? There was a, I can't remember the name of the show now. It's probably a sci-fi show. I think it was Star Trek, but you never know. But anyway, the objective of the show was that they lived in a society where everyone was required to tell the truth. Telling a lie was a capital offense. And I don't know if I want to go that far, because, you know, sometimes you have to tell a lie. Your wife says, "Does my butt look big in these jeans?" You say, "Sure, honey." "No, you look fine. You look fine." But you know, those are little white lies. But malicious lies, they should be punished. And I think that they should. You know, earlier at the beginning of the show, I played a clip from Greg Jarrett, you know, saying that misusing your position of authority to persecute an American citizen is a felony. And it should be. So I'd kind of like to see the prosecutor and the judge in the Bundy case charged under that felony, because they're lying. They're depriving people of their constitutional rights still. You know, Tier 2 is about to go on trial, and doggone it, it should have been dismissed altogether. I don't know if if they'll have the same prosecutor, though, Stephen Myrie, I sent a long letter to the public information officer at the Attorney General's office in Nevada, and I pointed out the 2 instances when Stephen Myrie was accused by the courts in which he was practicing law of malfeasance, of official prosecutorial misconduct. And I asked the Attorney General, why is this man still allowed to represent the people of the United States in a court of law? And my response that I got was, we declined to comment. You can't, I mean, obviously you can decline to comment, but it's not right. You know, sometimes I wish, and then, I do and don't wish for this thing. I want to see some public trials. I want to see some people swing for treason. Hillary Clinton, top of my list, traitor. Barack Obama, traitor. Eric Holder, Loretta Lynch, traitors. They all need to hang after a proper trial, of course. Even scumbags deserve due process. Actually, I think that Trump could probably put a nice big dent in the national debt if he made them pay-per-view events. I'd pay for it. Man, and it's a shame that we have to ask for things like that. It's a shame when things like that are required by our sense of fair play, and duty. But people do these things when they get up into the upper echelons of government. They commit these crimes because they feel that they are above the law. They think that they are the law. Well, I've got news for them. They are not. The power that they receive is directly derived from the people of the United States. That's you and me, folks. I think we need to see some public executions. And that'll put the fear of God in anybody else that wants to commit any douchebaggery. Treason is a terrible thing. And I can almost understand it on behalf if you commit treason on behalf of a political ideology. But it was just released that members of the FBI, like Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, were given bonuses, dollar bonuses, $59,000 in one case for doing their job well. They were committing treason and they got paid for it. That's a special kind of scumbag. They need to be hung upside down with their Buster Browns. Okay, let's go back to these comments on YouTube. Don't forget, if you want to call in and voice your opinion, you can do that at 218-548-7742 and enter the code 2018. That's this year. And I'll be happy to take your calls. Xenopec. Madam President for Gitmo 2018. Yeah, I like that. I've actually got a bumper sticker on my truck that says Clinton for President 2016. So I was on board that train a long time ago. I want to see that. I want to see that. Xenopec also says that Obama is an Islamic Trojan horse, and yes, that's exactly what he was. Oh, I gotta get this for you. You'll like this. There we go. So yes, Barack Obama was an Islamic Trojan horse. Do you remember when Barack Obama invaded Libya, or intervened in Libya? Well, that was an attempt to overthrow a legitimate ruler so that he could install or help install a Muslim Brotherhood friendly government. That's something that they had done throughout all of that fake, bogus Arab Spring. They tried to do it in Egypt, and for a while they succeeded until the people rose up and kicked the Muslim Brotherhood government out. But they did succeed in Tunisia, and they almost succeeded in Libya. Libya is still in a state of civil war right now because of Obama's intervention in Libya. And I'm going to prove to you right now that the reason that Obama gave for interfering in Libya, that Muammar Gaddafi was about to gas his own people, was an utter lie. Okay, let me pull this up here. Okay, the day after Muammar Gaddafi had been killed, I called NATO headquarters in Brussels, and I spoke to a spokesman there. And I asked him about Muammar Gaddafi's chemical weapons. And this was his response. You ready? Okay, here we go.
Part of the issue with Gaddafi was he was very demonstrably drawing down his old WMD capability. Now that the raw materials were there, and those needed to be secured, but there was nothing weaponized because they'd very deliberately stopped that program and were kind of in the process of disposing of it all.
Yeah, he had disposed of his chemical weapons as early as 2003, and NATO knew it. That spokesman told me that that was common knowledge, that Gaddafi had gotten rid of his chemical weapons, because they'd been helping him do it since 2003. So how Obama got NATO to go along with it, I don't know. I guess they're just still a weapon of the Antichrist. You know, when the Antichrist does rise to power, he'll be the Secretary General of the United Nations. That's why I still think Obama's a good candidate for Antichrist. I'm not going to say positively that he is, but there's been talk that he would like to be the Secretary General of the United Nations. And that's, if that happens, that's a scary thing, folks. And you know, let's see, I got another clip I'd like to share with you about Barack Obama. Okay, where are we? Here we go. Okay, you guys know who Anwar al-Awlaki was, right? Anwar al-Awlaki was a Muslim cleric that absolutely hated the United States. And I have no doubt in my mind that he was the terrorist scumbag that Obama said that he was. Okay? But that's not the point. The point was that Barack Obama ordered the murder of Anwar al-Awlaki, his friend Samir Khan, and then 2 weeks later, al-Awlaki's 16-year-old son, Abdurrahman. He didn't have any judicial review whatsoever, no congressional oversight, just a pen and a phone. I want you to listen to this little clip that I got from the ACLU. This was an interview that I conducted with Nate Wessler. At the time, he was working on the National Security Project of the ACLU. And he told me that Barack Obama was America's first tyrant. Yeah, that's pretty wild coming from the ACLU, isn't it? Well, never fear. This is what he said. Check this out.
Well, in my exclusive interview with Nate Wessler, he was an ACLU attorney that was at the time suing the Obama administration over the murders of Anwar al-Awlaki, Samir Khan, and al-Awlaki's 16-year-old son, Abdul Rahman, who had never done a thing to anybody. He was killed 2 weeks after his father, by the way, in a drone strike that the Obama administration calls a mistake. I don't think it was a mistake at all. I just think that Barack Obama didn't want Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki growing up and coming after his head. That's what I think went wrong. And Nate Wessler told me that the Obama administration was lawless. He said that Barack Obama and those working for him had assumed the duties of judge, jury, and executioner.
So if the government in fact had information that Anwar al-Awlaki was engaged in actual activity that was likely to lead to the deaths of U.S. citizens or others, or that he actually had engaged in that activity, then that should furnish the government with grounds to go to court, seek an indictment, charge him, and proceed to trial. And there are lots of examples in recent years and in the further past of successful prosecutions against people accused of terrorism. And really, without more information from the government, it's impossible to know what kind of evidence they had. If they had to go to court, they would have to produce evidence to the judge or the jury, prove their case, and then a verdict would be issued. Here, the government, the president, and those working for him seem to have taken on the duty of judge, jury, and executioner all by themselves.
Okay, now, folks, what I've got here is a copy of the Federalist Papers. This is a selection of writings by our founding fathers. And in Federalist Paper number 47, James Madison writes, "No political truth is certainly of greater intrinsic value, or is stamped with the authority of more enlightened patrons of liberty than that on which the objection is founded. The accumulation of all powers, legislative, executive, and judiciary, in the same hands, whether of one, a few, or many, and whether hereditary, self-appointed, or elective, may justly be pronounced the very definition of tyranny." Think about that. The very definition of tyranny. Now, when Barack Obama took it upon himself to illegally kill an American citizen, that day, September 30th, 2011, he became a tyrant.
Thank you for watching The Truth is Viral.
Yeah, we're not ready for the closed music yet. See, that was I just created that quick clip out of that whole long interview so that it would be easy for everybody to share, because it's only 3 minutes long. And the name of that clip is "The Next Time Someone Tells You How Great Barack Obama Was, Share This Clip." When the show's over, I'll put it in the video description below this video, and you can share that to your heart's content. Let's see. Go back to the comments. My buddy Jay over in Israel said Gaddafi was going to screw the U.S. dollar by trading oil in gold. That's exactly what he was about to do. He called them golden dinars. He wanted to create a gold African currency that wasn't based on Federal Reserve fiat money. And that's why they took him out. And the installation of a Muslim Brotherhood government was just a frosting on the cake. Okay, and then he tried to export this so-called revolution to Syria. Yeah, while Gaddafi's body wasn't even cold, the same Al-Qaeda terrorists, and yes, they were Al-Qaeda terrorists, they weren't Libyan protesters, the same Al-Qaeda terrorists that had killed Gaddafi were given free plane rides by Barack Obama on a AC-130, or several of them actually. 800 jihadists were transferred from Libya to Syria through Turkey. And he's the one that started that entire Syrian revolution. Let's see, Bashar al-Assad is not really a great guy. Neither was Gaddafi. Neither one of them were great guys. But they were able to keep a check on the terrorists within their borders. Most of the terrorists that overthrew Gaddafi belonged to an organization called the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group, LIFG. And a year before the revolution overthrow of Libya began, as a gesture of conciliation, Gaddafi had him released from his prison. Well, that was a fatal mistake, because then the CIA and MI5 or MI6 came in and trained those terrorists and helped them overthrow the duly elected leader of Libya. And same with Bashar al-Assad, that whole Syrian civil war, that god-awful mess. Folks, many innocent people have died, and that's directly the fault of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. Because, Hillary Clinton claims to be a Christian, but her girlfriend, and I say that literally, girlfriend, Huma Abedin, her mother sits on the board of the Muslim Sisterhood.
I mean, how can a person that belongs to an organization, the Muslim Brotherhood, that has sworn to devote themselves to the destruction of the United States, how does a person like that get to be the right-hand woman of a presidential candidate or the Secretary of State? So yeah, Hillary was all on board with that, not necessarily because she was a Muslim, but because she agreed with the globalist plan to surround Israel with hostile Islamic regimes and invade them. Well, they've run into a bit of a sticky wicket now that Donald Trump has become president. Over the last year, he's unleashed our military, and ISIS no longer controls any land in Syria or Iraq. Of course, the terrorists are still there, and they're calling for attacks on our homeland. Oh no! Okay, I gotta cut that out. Hold on a second. Yeah, that was the old music for the phone. Nobody seems to be calling, so I just got rid of it. Let's see, we've been going on for an hour now, and I think I've said just about everything I want to say, except for, let's just hope that the release of this memo, this awesome memo, unfolds into the destruction of the evil people within the Democratic Party and the imprisonment of them, those in the Justice Department and the FBI who have betrayed their oaths to the American people. I want to see these people punished. And judging by the comments on YouTube, everybody else wants to see them punished too. That's the only way we're ever going to get our elected leaders to behave themselves, apparently. And don't forget, all this stuff that's been going on lately, everybody forgets that there's still a sex scandal going on in Congress. They've used millions of dollars of your tax dollars to pay off victims of sexual harassment, and the names of those congressmen have not yet been released. I want to know those names. Matter of fact, I'll also put a link in the description below that's set to a video that I made. It says, "We want names," hashtag "We want names." Our congressmen, our representatives, our senators must be held accountable for their crimes. They must be. Otherwise, there's no deterrent to the next guy that wants to come along and grab the booty of one of their young pages, or yeah, it's like 17 degrees here. I've got all this equipment running here in my studio, and it's so hot. I've got the window open so you can hear the garbage truck going by. It's 17 degrees, like 2 feet away from me, and no breath, or you can't see the breath coming out of me. But yeah, that's because it's the equipment keeps it warm. I couldn't possibly do this without some kind of air conditioning because it really gets hot. So yeah, folks, I need you to hashtag that. We want names, and share it wherever you can. Facebook has been limiting my ability to share my shows. They keep on marking my shows as spam, whether they come from the blog at bobpowell.blogspot.com or straight from YouTube. It's just spam to Facebook. I can't go on Twitter anymore because I called Kim Kardashian a skank. You can't tell the truth over there either, I guess. But here's what I need you to do. I need you to go back through my shows and pick out ones that interest you, and they should all be interesting, actually, and share them. I need you to do that more than anything else in the world. Share those shows. And don't forget to subscribe to the blog at bobpowell.blogspot.com, Google Plus Bobby Powell, and on Gab AI. We're expanding our presence there, Gab AI at TTIV. It's kind of like Twitter, only they let you add more characters. And don't forget to subscribe to the Facebook page at facebook.com/thetruithisviral. And if you have the ability, folks, I really need your help to do this, because I'm like a one-legged man on an ass-kicking contest around here. I need technology and possibly to hire a person to help me producing these shows, because I'm literally doing the jobs of 4 people at one time while I'm doing this. And I would like to
be able to maintain my concentration without having to operate 2 computers and 4 live streams all at the same time. So I need somebody to help me out, and I need your help. So if you can, hit that PayPal button and give me whatever won't put you out towards saving our mission of saving lives and winning souls for Jesus Christ in these very last days. It's very important. And thank you for watching The Truth is Viral. My name is Bob Powell, and as always, God bless, Semper Fi, and hoorah. See you all later.
Thank you for watching The Truth is Viral with your host, Bobby Powell. Make sure to follow The Apocalypse on Twitter at The Truth is Viral. Like The Truth is Viral on Facebook, and if you can, please remember to donate to the cause via PayPal at www.bobpowell.blogspot.com.
Smack Runner, your game is through. Smack Runner, I'm talking to you.
Looks like I need to update my copyright information. Bye-bye.